You're entering the future-ready CNBC TV18 eBix Cash Studio.
Hello and welcome to CNBC TV18's eBix Cash Studio. I'm Parikshit Luthra. The Indian government has pressed the pedal on the metal and is urging automobile manufacturers to ramp up electric vehicle manufacturing. Motown captains are expanding their EV lineup with plans to set up fast charging networks. India's EV penetration as of today stands at 1.3%. That's a vast improvement from 2017, when India's EV penetration stood at only 0.4% of total vehicle registrations. But in all honesty, India's EV story has not exactly taken off. Lack of awareness about cost benefits, inadequate number of charging stations, lack of fast charging networks along highways, among others, have served as major deterrents. Let's compare India with the developed world. EV sales in China today account for 12% of its total car sales. EV penetration in Europe is around 15%. Even the United States has a 3% penetration rate. And will 2021, and this is the question, will 2021 be remembered as the year when India's EV story really took off? Let's welcome our guests. We've got Anmol, Jaggi, the co-founder and CEO of BluSmart. We've got Mahesh Babu, the CEO of Switch Mobility. Also with us is Chetan, Maini, co-founder and vice chairman of Sun Mobility. Nagesh Basavanhalli, group CEO of Greaves. Also with us, Jasmine Shah, vice chairperson of the Dialogue and Development Commission of Delhi. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us here on CNBC TV18. Mr. Babu, if I may begin with you, we've been tracking sales since 2017. It increased from 0.3 to 1.3% as of now. Doesn't really look very encouraging, but do you think 2021 will be a year when India's EV growth story really takes off?
Firstly, happy World Environment, World EV Day today. I think it's important that the panelists who are here, all of us are doing a tremendous efforts to have put India in the EV global map, as well as to make this EV Day wonderful. Coming to your question, I think we are talking about 1% plus adoption today, while we started off with a meager 0.4% 2-3 years back. I think the important thing is it is in the right direction. You know that EVs have actually come over the bump of COVID, and the adoption actually accelerated. There are tremendous efforts taken by the government, industry, and also even consumer awareness has substantially increased. And then we are looking at scaling up from 2020 onwards. I would say 2021 is going to be even better than 2020. But 2020 itself is a watershed moment when COVID came and EVs adoption increased substantially. So EVs have weathered the what I would say storm in auto industry, and it is playing a progress. Substantial number of players have come in two-wheelers. We have proved in three-wheelers it is economically viable. We have proved in four-wheelers, fleet mobility, it is making sense in economic viability. And large-scale adoption in buses and LCVs are the one which are taking place in India. I strongly believe buses have a huge opportunity, particularly in the cities, to get converted to electric. And now we are looking at LCVs and last-mile mobility and mid-mile mobility segment, where e-commerce is playing a vital role in converting to electric. With all this happening, it's not easy.
All right.
Say that auto industry itself, you need what I would say tough leaders to run it, and EV is going to be further tough. Having said that, India is having a huge opportunity in all the segment, and I'm happy that everybody, including government, industry, and consumers, are thinking that, and it is in the right direction. So it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be a very, what I would say, satisfying journey if you look at 5 years down the line.
All right, so you're saying 5 years down the line, it will be a satisfying journey, but India does not have any mandate or direction in terms of the number of EVs that should be on the road by 2030. But Mr. Jasmine Shah, just to get you in, the Biden administration has introduced a 50% electric vehicle target by 2030. The European Commission is targeting 60% EV sales by 2030, and their estimate is that Europe will reach 75% EV sales by 2030. Where do you think we are heading? How encouraged are you by the EV numbers that we see in Delhi?
So first of all, congratulations to everyone for, the World EV Day. I think it's a good opportunity to reflect on where we are on our own EV journey. And as far as Delhi's experience is concerned, despite being a pandemic hit year, uh, we've just finished 1 year of Delhi EV policy. We had notified it in August 2020. And in August 2021, we just finished 1 year. And if you look at the numbers and the share of EVs, we just spoke about that nationally, it's barely touching 1%. Delhi was at 1% a year back. And today, in the last 1 year, the share of EVs in new vehicles has increased to 3.3%, which is almost a threefold jump after the introduction of Delhi EV policy. And it's a mix of, it's a good signal that the kind of things that we are trying to do in Delhi are working. It's still early days, be it the incentives, be it the massive awareness campaign, which no other city or state in India has launched to popularize EVs, and it was called the Switch Delhi campaign. And subsequently, there's a lot of work that is also happening on charging infrastructure, promoting electric autos and stuff. But I must say that whatever happens in the coming months and years, the role of cities and states is going to be the most crucial. Nationally, there is, of course, support in the form of FAME, but the government of India is not putting its neck out and trying to give a target as to the share of EVs. States like Delhi have actually said that we are trying to reach 25% of the share of EVs by 2024, which is barely 3 years away. So I would not be too bothered about what Europe and what other parts of the world are doing. If cities and states can put a not more than 2 to 3 year target of what should be the share of EVs, minimum I think 10 to 15% is going to be the point of inflection. But if states and cities can aggressively plan to reach that 25% target, I think that is when we'll see the magic start happening.
All right. So you're saying that the government of India should stick its neck out, set targets for the industry, and that is when the transition will really take place. But just to get you in, Nagesh, you have launched an auto EV mart, different electric vehicles, be it two-wheelers, three-wheelers, all of them will be available under this space. Tell us about the strategy, the thought behind this. You've launched this on EV Day. How important is this for Greaves Cotton? You're on mute.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Parikshit. Thank you for the question. So yes, the EV mart that we have is a multi-brand offering to sell anything two-wheeler and three-wheeler and be a one-stop solution. Let me elaborate that, Parikshit, if I can. As we all know, India, 80% of last mile mobility is either a two-wheeler or a three-wheeler, right? When you look at our fleet. So making an impact here makes an impact to India. Secondly, you may think you're getting your home delivery or your food delivery through a Swiggy or a big basket. Guess what? Most of them are electric mobility vehicles these days, or they are transitioning, right? Future is electric. Just a couple of introductory comments, if I can. Government policies have been favorable. I am not in favor of quotas. Let the customer decide. It's for us as industry to deliver. Let the customer decide, right? Consumer behavior is changing. Post-COVID, personal mobility is rising. Sustainable tourism, Goa and Rajasthan are examples, are moving to electric. Startup ecosystem is helping us.
Right.
Are there challenges? Yes. Awareness, supply chain, financing, and range anxiety, but a lot of this can be solved, but there are challenges. But in summary, how can we accelerate? Going back to your original question, I think affordability is key. Let's remember what India is. India needs affordable mobility. In fact, that's where we play. Two-wheeler, e-rickshaw, three-wheeler, right? We need R&D and investment in technology. Electric technology is not new, people. 20 years ago, I was working on an electric vehicle in Detroit. The question is, can you bring it to India at the right value proposition that the customers will want to buy? I think that's the key thing for all of us. And I think it's going to come. I mean, I think the demand, especially in the last couple of months, has been increasing. Two-wheelers and three-wheelers, the demand is exceeding supply. So I see a lot of positives.
All right. You see a lot of positives in the space, and clearly we have been hearing that for the last 3 months, ever since the FAME scheme was restructured, and different states, in addition to Delhi, Delhi was perhaps one of the first states to come up with a very ambitious EV roadmap with strong subsidies. Since then, other states have also picked up, and that has really encouraged the EV ecosystem. Anmol, if I can get you in, another big announcement coming on the EV space. This is on charging infrastructure. Jio and BluSmart Mobility have tied up. Tell us how this partnership will work. And charging is a concern. Just the other day, I was driving an electric vehicle. It is a great ride. It is very comfortable to ride an EV. But when you are in a place like Delhi, you have so many red lights, you have so much of traffic, it's raining, the range tends to fall quite fast. And you tend to get a little anxious as to where will you charge your car, and will you be able to do it in 10 to 20 minutes or 30 minutes?
Sure. So wishing everybody a happy EV day. Coming on the first one around the partnership that BluSmart's done with GOBP, this is to set up a lot of charging stations over the next 5 years. Our aim is to set up about 35,000 charging stations across the country under this partnership in the next 5 years. BluSmart operates a fleet of electric cars, and we are going to have chargers for our own fleet as well as for other fleets and public at large. At Delhi, we are currently operating about 6 super EV hubs in various parts of Delhi, and we are very thankful to Government of Delhi for their entire incentive scheme and the clear policy which is there. Under this, we will be setting up, under this partnership, we will be setting up at least 25 more super EV hubs in Delhi NCR. What I mean by super EV hubs is each location where you can charge at least 50 cars in parallel. We believe that setting up 1 or 2 charging stations here or there will not make a significant shift to how people move. You need super EV hubs where 50, 100 cars can charge in parallel. They need to be in areas where there is a lot of rides and ride demand which is there. So that's what the partnership aims for. Around the anxiety of the car, range anxiety of the car, I think it's becoming better every day. When we started BluSmart 2 years back, the cars that we used to run were 110 kilometer range. Today, the average car is about 200 kilometer range, and the best ones are at about 300, 350 kilometer range. So the range anxiety is going down. Is there work to be done? Yes. And is work being done? Of course, all the OEMs are collaborating and working together so that the range anxiety, which is one of the biggest things that consumers want to wish away, gets resolved.
All right. Chetan, to come to you quickly before we take a break, you know, the average charger that we have for a battery, a fixed battery, if you have a wall-mounted charger at home, it's a regular normal charger, it'll take about 8 hours to charge your car. If it's a fast charger, it could be 65 minutes for a full charge, or 80 to 90% full charge. Is that really good enough, or we need turbo chargers which can maybe charge cars and two-wheelers within 10 to 20 minutes? And do we have such chargers in India right now?
Well, as you start to reduce the charge time, you have the temperatures go up and the life goes down. So technologies globally are coming down to 30 minutes, but there is an impact on life or cost. And so from our point of view, we think that this issue which we talked about on cost, range anxiety, and long refilling time fits very well with swapping. You swap in under 2 minutes and you're up and going. It's similar to how you refuel your current vehicle, and there's no change in anyone's habits. And this is works really well for especially the shared mobility market, where uptime is very critical. You're trying to get from point A to point B. You may have an extra ride to do. You don't know that, and you can go to a petrol bunk and swap it. So a partnership with IOCL that enables us to have refueling at the same level of its with regular vehicles. I think the other important part is that one of the stations that we have today does around 200 swaps a day. So it's like taking 200 parking slots of a two-wheeler and replacing that with one station that's the size of around 2 two-wheelers. So when we want to scale businesses, we have to also think about the appropriate infrastructures. So all these infrastructures would coexist. You'll have slow charging, fast charging, ultra-fast charging, battery swapping. Consumers will have an option depending on what's important for them to choose these. And it's important today that all of these coexist because they are different for different areas. But definitely for the shared mobility market, I see both in 2 and 3 wheelers, I see that battery swapping would play a very large role. And in certain areas of buses and other areas which are very circular in nature within city centers, again, swapping plays a very large role, reduces the upfront cost, range anxiety, and long refueling time, which I think have been the 3 key challenges why electrics really haven't moved in the pace we'd like it to.
Right. And this is something that Hero MotoCorp is working on closely. You also have players like Yamaha, which are exploring bringing swapping technologies and snow swapping centers to India. We're going to take a short break, but we'll request all our guests to stay with us. We're going to discuss how we can somehow push our EV adoption even higher with a strong policy ecosystem. We'll be right back after this break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. We are discussing India's EV mission on World Electric Vehicle Day. And let me go straight across to Jasmine Shah now. Jasmine, what do you feel is missing in India's EV puzzle? Do you think it is the product side, where OEMs need to make better products which give better range, better cost benefits to a consumer? Or it's on the policy side where we need greater standardization in terms of policy so that OEMs have a clarity on how to move ahead?
Well, I wish there was one single or one silver bullet that I could identify, but it's all of those, frankly. But since I represent state government, let me focus on what I feel governments ought to do. Certainly, manufacturers need to promote EVs more, introduce better models, and I'm sure there's a lot of work happening on that. We are seeing that in the two-wheeler space, especially. But as far as governments is concerned, I think the role of political leadership is going to be the most crucial. Unless governments make this one of their top priorities, when it comes to the entire mobility sector, environment, air pollution, then this is not going to happen. I'll give you examples. For example, most of our cities have very large bus fleets, but we are still seeing very low levels of adoption in electric buses. There is some subsidy that FAME offers, but for large cities like Delhi, Bombay, or Bangalore, we should be talking about thousands of buses being tendered and brought on the streets. We are still not there. Similarly, governments can actually introduce mandates. That's the policy lever governments have. I'm saying this is building on a good policy. A good EV policy at the state level is the starting point. But one thing, for example, that Delhi government has done has made a very hard mandate that the entire government fleet of cars is going to transition to EVs in like less than a year. That's a very tall commitment, but we have made that commitment. Similarly, we have said that all auto rickshaws that will now come in Delhi will only be electric auto rickshaws. We are soon going to come out with a scheme for 4,000 electric auto rickshaws. Similar introducing mandates for the commercial, delivery businesses. And this again, there's a certain point up to which incentives can work, even providing charging infrastructure will work. But until we start talking about governments taking leadership, introducing mandates, but also doing it in a collaborative manner, talking to the industry, I don't think we are going to see the kind of surge that some of the top cities and countries globally are seeing.
Right. Mr. Babu, we have discussed the FAME scheme with you very often in the past. Yes, it's now been restructured. There will be focus on 9 or 10 key metros, and ESL will try and tender about 4,000 to 5,000 buses to these states under the FAME scheme. But first 3 years of FAME 2, we saw just about 500 crores of 10,000 crores being spent. Why was the FAME scheme not really taking off when the money was already available? What's been your experience, Mr. Babu? Why do you think EV buses have been slow to take off? Is there resistance from state governments, state transport organizations? What really is the problem?
Yeah, Parikshit, I think all that you said is the bus has been a very complex situation in India, particularly because of the condition of STUs, the various different tenders from state government and central government trying to get in something which is innovative, which is a GCC model, which is a leased model for the bus. I think the most, what I would say, disruption happened in the bus segment. because as such, if you look at China, what they have done is the government has clearly put some clear example of how they have transformed the mobility, particularly the public transport like Shenzhen, and then converted substantial public transport buses into electric. Similarly, we should have taken a pilot project. Let's say Delhi. I'm sure Jasmine and team are doing excellent work to get Delhi as a capital for EV and buses. Now, this has multiple complexities of state transport run. We have tender method, we have depots, we have charging infra, and then linking that to consumer usage. India is not just learning on EV, India is also learning on this wet lease model, or model in which buses are getting on a per kilometer basis rented by the state transport units, because state transport units are literally having challenges on financing. So I believe that we are in the right direction. Once this whole thing gets set, and if now the CESL and the state government have understood what it is, because there is always a learning phase, and the bus tendering and the operations learning phase is taking a little bit more time than other segments. And I believe that whatever we have learned in setting up infrastructure for charging, operations of EV bus till now, and the tendering process and the operation model which we have learned, it should have taken off if the COVID wouldn't have come in last year. But I think the COVID has slightly delayed that learning and operations and added more questions to it. But I strongly believe when COVID goes out and the public transport resumes, the government is prepared on what to do, the industry is prepared on how to support, and kind of the operating team is understood how to do. I think it's a matter of time to take off. And we need to really work between central government FAME subsidies, state government's STU operations, OEM, and also the fleet operators. So it's the most complex model we need to resolve. And that's the most important, exciting challenge. I believe we will do that.
Okay, so greater bus adoption in the EV space will be a complicated one. But let me speak about the PLI scheme. And Mr. Nagesh, to get you in at this point, the sense that we are getting from the government is that the PLI scheme has been drastically changed. It will now be incentivizing manufacturers of electric vehicles and hydrogen fuel cell makers. But in the case of components, it will incentivize both spaces. Do you think this is the right way forward, setting a direction in a way, telling the OEMs that this is the direction in which India is moving? Further incentives will only be for new technologies?
Yeah, I believe it is the step in the right direction, because we do need to invest in new technologies. And I think it can help. And Parikshit, if I can go back to what the broader question you were asking, right? FAME 2, I also believe that this is time for a very collaborative approach. One company or one industry will not be able to solve this. This is a much bigger problem. So between us, supply chain, financing is a big issue in this industry, right? How do we create the ecosystem? Point number one. Point number two, also, when you look at what makes India mobile, people who are waiting for a metro or a bus for hours, can they move to a two-wheeler or a three-wheeler, right? The answer is yes. But look at the complete ecosystem, which is low speed, high speed. Bring in certain minimum standards, bring in localization and quality standards, and extend the FAME policy to all. Why not two-wheelers low speed? Why not e-rickshaw, which gives livelihoods to millions of people? So my thought process is, I think get India going in the last mile, moving people and moving cargo, invest in technology, invest in future skilling, reskilling, whether the skilling can happen in people or dealership or the entire 9 yards. I think that's kind of how you'll see the next step up change.
All right. And we've run out of time, but Chetan, Maini, coming to you, when it comes to battery manufacturing, when it comes to battery swapping, what more needs to be done? Yes, the government is working through the FAME scheme. It's working through the PLI scheme. What next needs to be done on the battery front?
So 2-3 things. I think government's done a lot on the FAME side of it. I think the challenge is there are new business models, right? Batteries are expensive. And so there's going to be fixed batteries, removable batteries, swappable batteries, battery leasing. And the government rolled out a policy where you could separate batteries from vehicles, but the concessions that people can get, the end customer, when batteries are sold separately are still not clear. So the FAME policy needs to be extended, clarity needs to be brought in, so if a customer walking into a showroom can choose A or B and gets the same benefit at the end of it. The second thing is the GST also doesn't follow that. For example, electric vehicles are at 5%, but if you separate them from the batteries at 18% GST. So again, this would be a challenge for the end customer. And the third area is, you need to get infrastructure in there for charging and battery swapping. And today, such services are an 18% GST. In reality, a e-rickshaw driver, an auto driver who's trying to go electric and has to pay 18% taxes on their refueling of electricity, be it via swapping or charging, is not the right policy. So I think there are some areas where these have to be fixed. These anomalies, I would say, have to be fixed. The other part is for the infrastructure to come in, electricity connections, transformers. The cost of putting infrastructure today is very expensive in India, one of the highest in the world. We've got to figure out a way that we can have common infrastructure points across cities, which has charging, swapping, all technologies. We create hubs, and the government gives infrastructure to those hubs so that consumers feel that, yes, the range anxiety issues that they have go away. It's kind of creating the right infrastructure platform and let then the players invest in the actual charging infrastructure, but give the roads of which would be equivalent in this case to electricity at point. I think these few things can really enable both the entire infrastructure business in the country and enable unique business models that can probably make 20-30% higher growth rate in our already good targets on electrification.
All right, so battery standardization is something that the government needs to look at as well, maybe swapping standards as well. That is what Chetan is saying. We've completely run out of time. We'd like to thank all our panelists for joining us today on World EV Day. Anmol, Jaggi, Mahesh, Babu, Jasmine, Shah, Nagesh and Chetan, Maini. That's all we have on this special show. Stay tuned to CNBC TV18 for more updates.
Trust the